thanksgiving in your heart and give him praise.
Hello and welcome. I'm so happy that you joined us. You know, last week I told you if you'd stay watching for this week, you would get some tips on how an entrepreneur goes into business, how a person gets the money together for a business. If you have an idea, what do you do then? I know a lot of times people have a terrific idea, and the person you're going to have an opportunity to meet, in the event that you didn't meet him already last week or one of the earlier shows, is named Ben Rowland. Ben is an entrepreneur, an inventor. He is in the Who's Who, listed in Who's Who of American Inventors, and he's going to talk to us about having a business, going into business, how that comes about. And he's one that knows, I think a lot of times business comes about as an opportunity to turn, as he calls it, tragedy into opportunity. It's because something happens to us, something is something we need. It's like TQM, Total Quality Management, that's customer driven. Well, it's a need-driven system that makes people invent things many times. So I'd like you to help me welcome Ben Rowland. Ben from Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Bonnie.
And I know a lot of people possibly did see you in your earlier videotape while he was in our studio here. We're happy to have him in the Tennessee Valley area and Victory Network and on the program Vision Plus. Now, tell us why you got involved in inventing. Let's just recap a couple of things that caused this to come about.
Okay. Well, what I want to underscore this section with is tragedy into opportunity. And a lot of people say, well, where did good ideas come from? And I look right at them and I say, anywhere they come from. Because really good ideas are stemmed from tragedy, they're stemmed from opportunity, they're stemmed from taking a shower and having a brainstorm. And I tell people not to try to identify where they come from. Just accept it if you have a good idea. If there's something you can really get behind, then chances are it is a good idea. Now, in my particular case, for those who missed us last week, I fell overboard from a 30-foot sailboat 300 miles off the coast of South Carolina, sailing into Annapolis, Maryland. And I thought I was going to lose my life. I thought I was dead. No one, to my knowledge, saw me fall overboard. As I lost sight of the boat, I thought for sure no one knew about me, no one cared, and I was dead. Well, I was wrong, luckily. They had seen me, and they turned around, and they eventually found me. I say by luck, or
the good Lord protected you.
The good Lord certainly protected me there.
And the ideas come from Him, too. We don't want to forget where ideas. But it's incidents that happen to you, situations, challenges, or opportunities or tragedy that pulls it together to bring it about for you.
Absolutely. And the thing was, is it didn't like jump out at me like, hey, I'm an opportunity, I'm a business here to make an overboard alert system. In fact, the first year after falling overboard, I walked around afraid in life. I thought for sure somebody was going to have to save me. I couldn't do anything myself because I was lost overboard. I was in a situation where I couldn't do anything myself. If I was to survive, somebody was going to have to help me. And I, in a negative way, took that with me out of that experience. So for a year, I walked around kind of messed up by that experience. And for me, out of a way to combat the negative feelings I had about the water, the negative feelings I had about myself and having to be saved, I decided to invent the overboard alert system and help change safety and survivability for the less fortunate people such as myself. I was very fortunate. But you know, many people, thousands internationally, die each year in water-related deaths. So I had a good idea. This was 1985 now. I knew I had a good idea. I was deeply committed to it. And that's the one thing I have to say to everybody, is that if you're serious about your product, if you're serious about your idea and making it go, you must have a deep commitment to make it work regardless. And I tell people that the door of success swings on the hinges of obstacles, which is really true. I mean, every bit of success out there is not just easily granted or given. It comes from stepping over hurdles, jumping over hurdles, digging under hurdles.
What were some of your obstacles?
Well, number one was I had an idea for an incredibly technical product, and I wasn't an electrical engineer. I wanted to track people underwater, above water, from a sophisticated little wristband transmitter, and I wasn't an engineer. So everybody told me, oh, you'll never get it off the ground because you can't do that.
If it's a good idea, somebody would have already thought of it. Didn't you know that, Ben?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the first thing you'll probably hear. But the chances are, yes, it has been thought of. Good ideas are replicated and duplicated all the time. And it certainly doesn't mean if it's been thought of that it can't be done again and in a better way. But for me, the first hurdle was actually the technical aspect. So what I did is I went out and I found people who were electrical engineers. And that's a real tip I got to give to people, and that is have partners. I have found that anything worthwhile doing is certainly worth doing with somebody else. And I could not have gotten to where I am today without my partners, other people.
Well, I think even Sam Walton called them associates, but anyway, you know, everyone he says contributes to the success of yourself. And Paul Meyer said, if you need the money, go get the money. If you need the people, go get the people. If you need the intelligence or the intellect or the know-how, you go after that.
Absolutely.
So how did you go after that?
Well, for me, I was living in Atlanta at the time, and of course we had Georgia Tech, which offered me a great place to look for electrical engineers and students. And I found a couple young students in their PhD program who got excited over the idea. They were both sailors. We had some commonality, and that's something in finding your partners or finding your associates. Make sure you find people who have the commonalities that you're looking for. So we had equal ground. They started the technical part. Well, then the whole idea comes up, and this is the first thing that people will say to you. Somebody's going to steal your idea. Okay, so what do you do? I thought, my gosh. Yeah, but I thought to myself, my gosh, how could anybody steal this idea? They're going to have to fall overboard, nearly drown to come up with it, and then they're going to have this incredible technical knowledge to put it together. And I thought, no, it couldn't be done. Well, actually, I listened to my friends, and I decided that probably a patent lawyer was the best direction for me to go. But at that time, I was struggling. I didn't have any money. I was paying.
Now, your parents had a family, had a business, but they were not going to plunk down the money for you to, even though they'd had a 20-year going business, they just didn't feel that, or you didn't feel that you should go to them for seed money for your
Well,
invention.
it was really them. I think there were lots of times when I wanted them very much to help me. But you're right. My father is an entrepreneur, and he made a success out of himself in a way that he didn't receive a lot of help. And I've always been proud of him for doing that. And I think he tried to instill those same ideals upon me. And, you know, obviously, I think there's a lot of times that I probably cursed him for it, but on this side of it, I'm very glad because he really gave me the opportunity to, well, perhaps not curse him, but
you wish they'd
there
give
were
you the
many
money.
difficult times, sure. But in 1985, so I was working part-time jobs. I had these engineers on the side who had big bills. Engineers are expensive. And I needed a patent lawyer.
And you're a computer whiz that was working in Macintosh computers.
Desktop publishing, that's correct. I've always been able to express myself, and I've used Apple Macintosh computers to produce my marketing material and, of course, correspondence for about the last 8 years. But here's a little tip that I want to tell people who are thinking about getting into business, and it's a great resource. It's one that's generally forgotten, and that's the Small Business Administration. Okay, now the SBA is locally just about in every big city, and you can write your local community board or your economic development board, or there's a couple different places.
Chambers of Commerce.
Chambers of Commerce, you'll be able to locate the SBA. But it's not just the Small Business Administration that helped me in 1985. It was a part of the SBA called SCORE.
Yes, these are senior retired people that are tops from their companies. I mean, they could be people that have run General Motors or NASA or whatever, you know, and when they retire, they do, yes.
As I say, you hit it on the nose there. They are top people. Generally, they are retired. They'd like to keep their feet active, so they consult young guys like me and entrepreneurs out there who don't have the resources to access a professional, a high-end professional. Well, the SBA gave me my first, what I call, true break. And what happened, I went to the Atlanta SBA, I met the SCORE operative, and he located a patent lawyer who had spent close to 30 years with Bell Labs as a patent lawyer. And he'd also worked in the Crystal City patent office. You know, he knew patents inside out. I really couldn't have found a better person. And for the next 2 years, he helped me countless hours, and not for pay, you know. And then when we got into the filing, I paid for the filing, but I'd already had this incredible work completed. And I've used the SBA quite a bit. And it is a little-known resource that I recommend for anybody who is starting a business, thinking about starting a business, that they find a SCORE operative, request the type of personality they need to meet with, and then see what SCORE can do for them.
You know, it's really a unique instance, but I'm actually one that used it. Tony and I used the SBA. We got a direct loan, $150,000, that actually helped us to start our business, that got us off the ground in addition to some savings we had. But I took it from filling out, they have these endless sheets of paper to fill out. You know, I just knew that the rule was don't leave anything blank, because you got to have every blank filled out no matter what, even if you put not applicable, you know, NA.
That's exactly right.
But anyway, that was one way of funding it for you and to get the patents. But how about getting into production then?
Okay. Now, yeah, that's right. So this was all before the business even started. It wasn't until 1987, which at that time I was patent pending, and I'd had some nationwide publicity. People were interested in my idea of turning a tragedy into an opportunity. I was speaking at local schools about being an entrepreneur, being an inventor, being an overboard victim. And in 1987, suddenly I realized that, yes, gosh, I was going to have to manufacture this. I was going to have to, you know, actually build it and put it out in the global markets and to help people all over the world. Well, overload. You know, immediately, what do? Well, I went back to the Small Business Administration. I got into a couple free seminars on starting your own business. Some of them would home in on the finances, how to finance your own business. Some of them would home in on how to maintain books. Some of them would look at how to get partners involved in different types of business contracts.
So you got that going.
Yeah, so I again got a lot of free information from the Small Business Administration, and then I made the mighty plunge. In 1987, I incorporated. The name of my company is called Safety Alert and Locating Systems, because really the overboard alert system is just one device of many that I'm designing. Now, the overboard alert system is patented here in the United States and Canada. Matter of fact, right before I got to the station yesterday, I received the Canadian patent from my patent lawyer, a pretty big day in my life. Yeah. And but it's just one of the many types of devices that I plan on developing, and I think we'll see in the future of safety and survivability, not just on the water, but out helping Alzheimer's patients, tracking people who can't help themselves, tracking lost children, tracking skiers who've gone over the backside of an avalanche. Really, we have opportunity right now to use the tremendous technology that has afforded us in 1992 and the 21st century to make what I call unencumbering, convenient, life-saving devices. See, safety's had kind of a bad name. I hate to say that, but it has. Safety for a long time, especially in...
How's it had a bad name?
Well, in marine industry, safety's had a bad name because it's a big bulky orange or bulky yellow life vest, or it's seat belts that pull you in, and people fight seat belts. Or in Maryland, where I've been, they've just passed a helmet law for motorcyclists, and they don't like it, you know. And safety's always been an inconvenience. Let's call it that rather than a bad name. But I think it can change, and I think we'll see that change over the next decade because of the availability of the high-tech little devices. Like, you know, for us, we could put a wristband or a belt unit on you, and if you're an Alzheimer's patient, you won't even know the difference. It's just a watch. And yet, if you wander out, your children can be notified electronically through their telephone or relayed onto their own wristband. And that type of confidence can not only benefit, you know, your children, but you as an Alzheimer's patient. So really, you know, I see the future of safety being very bright. And, you know, I don't want to down our current safety messages.
That's 87, and now it's 92. So those 5 years, you did go into the manufacturing. How did that come about?
Okay, we are still...
Made the plunge.
Yeah, let me say we're still pre-manufacturing. We're developing electronics ongoingly.
But you do have a Navy contract, don't you? Or you're working
We're in the midst of pulling a Navy contract together. Nothing's signed right now, but there's a good possibility that we will have something signed in the next 6 months. But we're a very new idea, and it's a very new technology. And really where we're at today is we're still raising funds to go into manufacturing. Manufacturing of a product like this is expensive, over $2 million, Bonnie. And that's been difficult to find, but not impossible. And over the last few years, we've had a great deal of success, in fact, bringing funds into the company and helping us research the market and really build a foundation for this product to be produced. And we've also made the contacts. I've spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., in the Pentagon. Every entrepreneur out there, get ready, get your sneakers on, because you'll do a lot of traveling. You need to promote yourself, and you need to go the extra mile. And the thing about the extra mile is there's rarely traffic jams on it. Okay, it's very open out there for people who want to go the extra mile, and I'm a big believer. In fact, I told you a little earlier, and I'll say it again, don't wait for your ship to come in, swim out to it.
All right, now what about the obstacles that you feel are to get you the rest of the way? The $2 million,
yes.
And a few small little items like that,
Yeah.
But what other obstacles have you had to overcome?
One obstacle has been education. Really informing people that this type of product is available. And it's funny, you know, when I tell people about this, the first thing they say is, you mean this isn't already out there in the market? And I have to say, no. So I'm educating people to it. That's an obstacle in itself. Now, funds has obviously been an obstacle, locating manufacturers, and for quite some time the engineering of it was, but we've been able to overcome those.
Mm-hmm. Now, it can be used for the Navy,
correct,
navies, and I can see the use in like a carrier with the
mm-hmm.
planes and the, well, any kind of carrier. But what about the cruise ships? Mm-hmm. I could see the need for it there, but how could that cruise ship liner say to their passengers, here, put this on in case you fall overboard, yeah. That kind of thing. How are they going to overcome those kinds? However, I've been on a cruise and I wouldn't object at all. Mm. I would, in fact, look forward to having that on, mm-hmm. to know that. And so I wouldn't see that as an obstacle. But would the cruise line or the airline see that? How would they overcome that?
I have run into some objection from the cruise lines, basically because they don't want to promote that there is a potential problem while being at sea. Now, please don't let me mislead you. Most cruise lines are very safe. They have high standards of safety. Now, that doesn't...
I don't even remember hearing of people falling overboard in cruise ships.
Well, that's something that's not well publicized.
I would imagine that it wasn't.
Yeah, usually it's a 2 or 3 liner in some newspaper, and it's buried pretty deep. And also, there's really not a problem in the cruise industry because they do have very high standards. You're dealing with novice at sea. As I said, I originally designed this for cruise ships because of the high number of novice. But yes, I think eventually we will see this on cruise ships. It could be designed as a nice, black after-dinner watch, very small, very unencumbering. You can change it, if you want to change the colors, different bands. Right. Yeah, we have a lot of fun ideas for the future of where this type of tracking and safety technology can go.
What about the latchkey kids and those kinds of the children that could, or perhaps being on their family houseboat and they fall overboard, those kinds of things? Can you see other ideas of how the safety could come into play?
Absolutely. I want to keep tying in how an entrepreneur pursues his own company into this conversation. And to answer your question, yes, there are many markets. And as an entrepreneur, you must look and see where your product is needed and then where it might eventually occur. Because right now I can identify markets that I say absolutely it's needed. But then there's this whole other area of markets that I would love to see it in 10, 15 years. Yes, there's a good chance that this type of technology will move into those areas. But for today, no.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I would love to track kids someday. You know, I've told you before.
It could be done.
Absolutely.
It's just that it's like TQM, the total quality management, that is customer-driven management, or if our president was citizen-driven. It's that an entrepreneur has to look for the need that the marketplace will purchase at that time.
Absolutely.
Because it could be used in these areas, but would it be too expensive to be used?
Now, I see that there are many different types of entrepreneurs, but there are two that I mainly work with. The one type of entrepreneur is somebody who takes an existing idea, changes it a little bit, and comes into the market perhaps with the best price or a new color or something that has rebuilt an existing product. The second type of entrepreneur is what I call an inventing entrepreneur. That is somebody like myself who's come up with a new technology that hasn't been done before in the market and then has to educate the market to the need.
So one of the biggest challenges is that education.
Absolutely.
So that's what you're involved in a lot now.
Yeah, and that's really why I thank you for allowing me on this show, because I feel that this helps educate people to the types of safety systems that are coming down the pike. And I've always believed that we're on the right track, and this is what it looks like right now.
Right at the moment, you are the chairman of the board of the company, so you're not there day to day, but you are doing more inventing.
Absolutely.
And developing of other products. If, let's say, we're in the space industry here in the Tennessee Valley area, for where this is being videotaped at the moment, prior to Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and on the day of the World's Day of Prayer, which was a wonderful opportunity. But for people who maybe have an entrepreneurial idea that they want to get on the market, how can they support themselves while they're doing that? How did you do that?
Everybody does it a little differently. Your best resource is your family and your friends. They are the people who will support you emotionally and also financially if they can. Outside of that, well, everybody goes about it a little differently. For me, I promoted myself, my story, my invention, and just got out there. Took every opportunity I could to get in a newspaper, to speak at a school. So I met people. You know, I met you through a seminar. I was networking. And really you got to do that. One of the most powerful things is always be awake to your industry. I went to a seminar one time, and I walked out of the seminar, and out of the corner of my ear, I heard the word Navy. Well, I actually walked out of the room and was walking down the stairs before I stopped myself and said, "Come on, you entrepreneur. You followed up smaller leads than that." So I walked back into the room. I looked for the guy with the shortest hair in the crowd, and he's ended up being a tremendous influence on my life and on my business for the last 3 years. And that was all out of just being available to hear the word Navy and caring enough to not step over anything. And
awareness.
Awareness. Yeah, absolutely awareness. And I really believe as an entrepreneur, you have to do that. You have to go that extra mile. You have to make yourself aware and continually look for the openings, see what's possible. And I can guarantee you there will be times you want to stop. In fact, there'll probably be times that you will stop. I tell people that I've fallen so many times my knees are all scarred, but I've gotten up so many times my legs are strong. And they carry me now through a very exciting time in my life. I am getting back into inventing and to starting new businesses. I'm working with a Maryland physician on a pre-retirement community right now that is very exciting.
Come back and tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that at some point.
Just let people with saying, what, I want to hear about it. And you'll want to hear a lot more, and that's from Ben Rowland. And you will see his address and his phone number and how to get in touch with him on the screen. And we're so happy that you joined us here on Vision Plus. And for you also, Ben Rowland, quickly you can give them your phone number, voicemail phone number.
Oh, thank you. Yes, please contact me directly if you have any questions or comments or would like to get involved in the marine life-saving industry or have a couple $1 million extra lying around. But my personal number is 202-298-8911. Or if you prefer, you can write me at 5010 Wisconsin Avenue. That's Suite 118, Washington, D.C. 20016.
Did great. Ben Rowland, I'm Bonnie Liebhart, and bless your heart for watching.
Thank you.
Your voice is raised, give glory and honor and power unto Him, Jesus, the name above all names. Come into His presence with thanksgiving in your heart and give Him praise. Give Him praise. Come into His presence with thanksgiving in your heart. Your voice is raised. Presence with thanksgiving in your...
And welcome. I'm Bonnie Liebhart, and you're watching Vision Plus. We're so happy that you joined us today. However, some of the things that you see may just prick your heart and make you want to cry out to help these people, though they are not asking for help. But I want you to see a little baby that you're going to be seeing in a moment that was not aborted, and he is very beautiful, Dario Reeves. And if you can see this picture of him, you'll see he was born a very normal person, and you will see what has happened since he has hemangioma. We'll find out a little bit about that, meet his parents and his mom and his grandmother, and he's just a beautiful young man in this picture. Now, not only do we have that, but since we're talking about children and ideas, we have another thing that's new for children during this period of time. David Brown has done this for children like Dario to learn their ABCs. Isn't this a good idea? They're color-coded, and this is one model that's available. There'll be another model that will actually, if you push one of the letters, it will light up and say R or K or A, B, C. So I just thought this was really neat, and the inventor and patent pending person, David Brown, is right in our own Tennessee Valley area, the Vision Plus viewing area, and we'll be seeing more of him. I think that we had a name that our buddy pal Patty Allen had given us for us. I don't know if she remembers what it is now. Brainy Bruin. That's right, Brainy Bruin. I like that. Well, someone that would possibly play with Brainy Bruin is with us in the studio, Dario, and I want you to meet this family. Welcome to Vision Plus.
Thank you, Mom.
And Victory Network. Now, tell me, what is hemangioma?
Hemangioma is the overgrowth of blood vessels. It's where the blood vessels, when he was forming, did not receive the signal to stop growing. And it's just an overgrowth. They just kept growing until they could not grow anymore.
Sort of like a strawberry mark that just keeps growing, isn't it?
Right.
'Cause a lot of children have what they call strawberry mark on their neck or forehead or somewhere, and it'll start growing.
Right.
This is Dario, and what is the prognosis for Dario?
The prognosis is that by the time he's about 6, most of this will be gone. But there is a lot involved between now and then.
Yeah.
He's already been through how many
3
surgeries?
surgeries.
And what was the price of those, just to get an idea?
They're right around $6,000 for the surgery alone.
And that was just to 2 days of open his eyes so he wouldn't lose his
Very
eyesight.
minor
Right.
surgery, yes. Mhm.
Considered minor. 2 days, $6,000. What are some of the other things that he's been through in addition to these?
Well, lots of doctor's visits. When it first came up, no one knew what it was because it's very, very rare. So don't get scared if you're pregnant and you're having a child. This will happen to your child. It's very rare.
Mm-hmm. Now, actually, Gracie, you do not believe in abortion and had made the decision to have the baby.
Right.
And what made you make the decision not to have an abortion?
My faith doesn't let me believe that. I don't. I'm not a very religious person, but I've never believed in abortions. And I love kids, and this is what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. So, and you also made the decision to keep the baby.
Right. I had thought about adoption, but then I decided no. I wanted my child.
When this first started, you happened to be out of town as the grandmother, right,
Right.
Karen?
Mm-hmm. When
Tell
this
me
first
about
came
that.
up on his face. And
He was already a few weeks old, wasn't
yes,
he?
he was a month old.
And he had a totally clear complexion at
And
that
it
time.
started looking like a bruise, and while we were out of town, this came up and scared her to death, and of course terrified me when I got back.
Right.
And she had been through some terrible things. They had told her it was Sturge-Weber's, which is a very, what do you call it?
Complex. A Sturge-Weber gets into the brain and actually affects the brain of the child, and it causes seizures and epilepsy and stuff like that. So we had to do a CAT scan.
But this is actually just on the surface.
This
It's
is
not in growing
superficial.
internally. And I know that our son had a little strawberry mark, and and within a year it's totally gone. In fact, 6 months or 8 months, something like that. So they do go. Now, he also, the first time I saw him, he had bandages. You were having to change those bandages.
3 times a day.
And they were very expensive.
Very expensive. They were running, we figured, right around $380 every time we changed the bandage.
So almost $12 a day just for bandages alone.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you'll still have to go through as far as the surgery is concerned?
We're going to have to go through 12 to 15 more surgeries. And the very last one will be to reshape his left eye to look like his right eye when all this is cleared from his face, which will be about 5 or 6 years.
What about people that, let's start with your family. How's your family responding to this, Gracie?
They were very negative at first, but then as any child wins everybody over, they got to it. You know, they didn't know how to handle it because of his face. They were very scared, and they didn't know what to do about it, but now they're okay. It's normal.
Well, he's also being a multiracial child. That would be another thing that a lot of grandparents would have,
Right.
and great-grandparents, because you have, he has grandparents and great-grandparents,
Right.
doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
How are the rest of the family? You say they're coming around now. How are they different than when it first happened?
They were some of my, not my mother, not my sister, but some of the other ones, they were so involved of what their friends thought and how the community would see them, their social standing. Putting it honestly, they cared more about what their friends and family thought than, really loving the child.
What are some of the things that he can do? He's 8 months old, and because of this, the blood feeds this area, so he doesn't have an opportunity to grow. So, what are some of the things he can do, and why? Tell me about it.
He can do almost anything he wants to do. Delightful. Crawling, walker, swims in this little pool. Yeah, there are some things you have to be careful with. We have to be careful with this because of the infection. When it does open and bleed, we have to watch that it doesn't get infected. But other than that,
the
he's
bleeding,
pretty
because that could
pressure. The pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we're talking when it bleeds, it can bleed. It actually just spurts. It's like you've hit an artery or something.
Yes.
It spurts blood.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to know how to handle it. And
well, we're really going to believe. I just was thinking about this verse, that he's going to be healed. And it says here in Luke 9:11, and the people, when they knew it, followed him, and he received them, and this is talking about Jesus, and spoken to them of the kingdom of God, and healed them that had need of healing. And I think that this young man is going to be healed, and along with Kathy and the staff here, Patty and all of us we were praying for. And we're going to believe that's going to happen. It says here, and I thought this was good for you and your child. It says, daughter, this is in 8:48, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee well. Go in peace. And I heard you talking about your faith, that you really, that helped you. And how about you, Carolyn? Tell me about how your faith has helped you.
I think it has strengthened my faith. And this has been the most delightful thing in the world to have ever happened to me.
And you
I
were
really
working
think
full-time
I was working full-time
in your family business, and had to give that up.
I've had to give it up.
And what about the social time now for you? How are you working that out? both of
Social
you?
time? Social time means he goes with us.
Yeah.
He goes with me almost everywhere I go. Oh.
So you go to the grocery store and the hairdresser
Oh, yes.
and everything. You've given up your job with the business and you're staying at home. Wouldn't it be a good idea if you, wouldn't you like a little outlet, like maybe doing some work at home?
Yes, I would very much like to find something where I could do data entry or something at
With
home,
computers.
but I cannot leave him now. And it's important for her to work and go to school, and he needs me right now.
So you're going to school at the moment and working. That's a big responsibility to do both of those.
Yes, it is, but it's something that I had to do. You
Gracie?
know, my mom understands.
Gracie, what do you think you've learned in all of this? Because you're 20,
23 this month.
so this came about, you know, as a very young person in a sense that you've gone
Yeah.
through a lot. You've lived a lot, through a lot since being
I've
23
really
years
grown
old.
up. I've a lot of responsibility.
How are you different? How have you grown up?
It's a hard question.
Maybe I could answer that.
Okay.
She's much more responsible and much more understanding of the whole world. I think that everybody goes through a period when they're in their late teens and early teens and late teens where they're very opinionated and their way's the only way. And I think she has already passed this point.
Yes. I mean, it's just, before I got pregnant, I had a full-time job, and I was manager of a retail shoe store in the area, and I had to give that up because I was pregnant, because I almost lost him when I was 5 months pregnant, and I had to give up my job. And then that's when I started going to school full-time. So I had to give up a lot, but I got a lot more in return.
You got a lot more in return. How would you like people to respond and react to you and you as a family and Dario?
One thing that bothers me the most is when people stare and they don't ask questions. We're not afraid to ask us. We're not afraid, you know. It really bothers us when you just stare and, you know, whisper among yourselves and everything. Ask us. Don't be afraid. You know, we're not afraid to answer you. You know, we'll tell you. Just stop us, you know, and say, you know, what happened. A lot of people think he's burned. It looks like a burn, but he's not.
Well, you know, how would you feel about just saying to the person that's staring at you or something to actually say, would you,
I
this is
do.
something you
I
actually
do.
What have you said, Karen?
I have actually walked up to him, would you like to know, and ask him. And
Then they seem kind of embarrassed, but
he's such a pleasant child that he wins them all over. All he has to do is smile, and then everybody just seems to fall in love with him. Yeah, go to your mama for a minute.
Well, we really believe, and I was happy to hear that you do too, in healing, and we're just believing he's going to be totally healed. Now, has this made, you said that she is more aware of other people that have challenges. How has that changed as far as when you see people who are, whatever the challenge is, it could be that they're crippled or they have any type of
it makes me
situation.
more determined, and it makes me realize that you really have to work for something that you want.
But how do you mean determined? Determined.
Stick with it. You know, don't let anything get in your way. You know, if that's what you want, then that's what you're going to have. If you really set your goals, make a plan, and just do it. You know, don't be afraid. Don't let anything stop you. You know, just do it.
How has the people at the church you've been used to going to, how has that been? Has that been a challenge for a lot of the people?
Yes.
I noticed when you came in one day, you were in the beauty shop, and one of your friends that you'd known a long time ago from Gregory's Pizza.
Yeah, Jay Gregory's.
Jay Gregory. That she was just as, and this was the first time she saw Dario or even knew about him. And I think you had grown up with their children, and she was seemed totally comfortable. And to me, from just seeing her original reaction, and her love for you and for your children came through. This is what you'd like all of your friends
Oh,
to
yes.
do.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And probably the ones that are your real friends do come through like that, don't they?
You really find out who's your friend or not.
I think it has brought us, not only as a family, but as an extended family, our friends and things, closer. There has been a bonding in here, especially in the inner family. We're, everything's kind of bonded real tight. You know how as families get older and the kids grow up, people kind of start, it's not that you don't love each other, but the closeness is not quite there. But this all brought all this centering back together.
Well, how would you say if another grandmother finds, out that her grandchild is going to be interracial, how would you help her to accept that in the beginning? Because that had to be overcome first.
It definitely had to be overcome first. It's not the baby's fault. This baby still needs love. This baby's still part of you.
That's right.
No matter what. And just give that baby half a chance, and you're going to get more back from that baby than you can ever imagine.
Than you can from your hate. Just because you might not like a certain color or a certain person because of their color, don't let the whole thing affect it. You got to look at the whole picture, not just one certain part of it. Just really let yourself dig deep and say, is it worth it? I mean, my mom and I had a lot of fights over me dating men of other color, but now she doesn't mind because now she really sees that they're not all like that.
And I got my boy.
That's right.
I got my boy.
How about you, like your grandfather? I will not respond to that at this moment because I still have an unmarried daughter, and I just, will leave that for each person to make up their own mind.
It's tough.
But how about like your father?
My father? My father, who for a long time did not know the baby existed, was told several weeks ago.
Where does he live? He lives away?
In
he
Huntsville.
lives here, but he just didn't know that she had a baby.
And
which would be a
great
great-grandson.
Great-grandson.
Right,
I picked up the phone one day and called him and says, there's been a lot going on. I'm not trying to blame anybody.
Him
it wasn't my idea to keep it from him.
But I mean, someone chose to keep that. Now okay.
Anyway, and I called him and I said, there has been something that has happened, and I want to share the greatest joy that's ever happened to me with you. And I says, I told him about the boy, and I says, do you want to see him? He says, you bring him over right now. And it is just wonderful.
So he was able to accept it, and he had a lot to accept in one day, because where you had a chance
to adjust, yes.
To accept Dario in one level, and then this came about, you had another level. It's almost like God was for sure wanting people to see how he could look as a normal child, and how he will look again when the healing is complete.
Well, he sort of had a chance to get used to it, because when he was in the hospital last year,
Your grandfather.
Yes, my grandfather was in the hospital. He had told me, he said, I'm ready for you to have a great-grandson. I want a great-grandson before I die. He said, I want to know another baby in the family. And he's the first boy in 30 years on either side of the family, and the first great-grandson on either side of the family. So that's why he's very special. That's why our family has come a lot closer.
Now, when you first heard about it, you're saying that he wanted a great-grandson. Usually you think of that as a person to continue the family for generations. Well, are you an only child?
No, I have a little sister.
Okay, now I do remember you saying something about your mother and your sister. I do remember that. So, do you plan to get married and have other children possibly someday after you get out of school. And
Yeah, I'm planning a wedding this year.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay. So that person is accepting Dario fine. Well, that's a big step for him to do that. Okay, so what you would say is that the baby is not at fault. So just learn to love the baby.
As an individual.
As an individual.
You know, these babies are going to give you back so much love.
Yes.
But one of the things I was anticipating, how long do you think he will probably, do you think that has Dr.
Louis Vasconez.
Vasconez, Dr. Louis Vasconez, he's out of Birmingham. If someone has a child that has hemangioma, then you could actually get in touch with Dr. Louis Vasconez in Birmingham, and he can help you through these periods of time. This is only one of several that he is working with at this point. And so what about some of the other people that he's working with, and how does he help you to cope with all of this?
There is Dr. Montgomery at UAH Medical Center, and then the lady doctor, I forget her name, at the health department, and they all work with us.
So that was how you found out about the Dr.
Right.
Vasconez
Dr. Montgomery sent us to UAB.
in Birmingham.
And Dr. Vasconez is, I think he's just absolutely wonderful.
Yes,
he thinks
he's
this
God's
boy
son.
is his boy, and he has promised us that this boy will be just as beautiful as he was meant to
And
be.
do you anticipate that he will just have a long life like anyone else?
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
Is there any possibility, or do they know yet, if he would carry that gene to his children?
They don't think that it is. They do not know
He
for
might be
sure
wise
what
not to
causes
have children, just
the signal
his
to.
own.
Yeah.
But I guess you don't really know.
They don't think it's something that is passed on through the genes.
'Cause
She may have sneezed at the wrong time. You know, we don't know. They don't know what causes it.
And is this something that it's probably not being studied as much as other things, simply because it is so rare?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And when it is, like you say, the small spots you've seen on children, some children have them, but they're not a big danger like this. They don't cause the possibility of losing eyesight or hearing or whatever. So they are kind of ignored.
Yeah, this is the largest one in the country that, well, actually, I think he said in the world so far
That he knows of.
That they knows of. Yeah.
Well, it looks a lot better than the first time I saw it, which was,
yes.
what, 60 days ago,
Right.
something like that? And when you had to have those bandages and they would bleed, it was just a continually bleeding. So we're going to believe he's going to
They
be totally
hemorrhaged.
healed.
Yes, they hemorrhaged.
Hemorrhaged. And then you could actually, he could lose his life from that. But you said that it's actually
Part of the healing process. When he bleeds, it's part of a healing process.
but that there was something else they first thought he had that would have been even worse.
Oh,
than-
Sturgey Weber. Sturgey Weber, yes.
Which is where
How's
the
that different?
hemangioma not only is on the outside, it's into the brain.
And this one is just a
Superficial.
superficial. Well, we know that if 3 two-day surgeries were $6,000 each, and there's a possibility of 12 to 15 more surgeries. I know she was so careful to say, you don't want me to say anything about that, but that is a big financial
It is
responsibility.
a big financial.
So I guess we can just have you to do a lot of data entry.
Yes, a
will
lot of data
let you
entry
do
for
that.
somebody.
And what's your degree that you're working on?
Sales and marketing. Business administration, sales and marketing.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know if it's some type of medical. A lot of times people will become doctors or whatever because of
Right.
that. So, but whatever you do, you need sales and marketing, don't you?
Yes,
Do.
definitely.
So what would you say? What you're saying is, just sum it up for us. What Dario Reeves has is
Hemangioma. Yes, very hard word. I couldn't say it at
Oh,
first.
we're doing great, aren't we?
Yes.
I learned a new word today. And also that he should be totally normal in how many years, maybe?
5 to 6 years.
But yet we have to have possibly skin grafts and plastic
Right.
surgery to make the eyes the same. So there's a lot ahead for him and for
awful
you.
lot.
And
Right.
so we're just going to be praying for you. We're just adopting him to pray for. And I know it's good. My daughter had gone to Russia, and there's a lot of interest in those things and all over the world. but we got a lot of needs right here in the Tennessee Valley area, and so this is one of them. And we just hope, you hope, that everyone will receive him, come up to you and talk to you, ask questions, let children ask questions, and don't just stand over the side and whisper and wonder.
Especially children.
Yes, they need to understand. So I want to thank you very much, Karen Nichols, grandmother, and also for Gracie Reeves and Dario Reeves for being with us today and sharing your story of your faith and how you cope with hemangioma through your faith and through prayers. And we're glad you joined us. I'm Bonnie Libhart. This is Vision Plus. Bless your heart for watching.
Thanksgiving in your heart and give him praise. Give him praise. Come into his presence with thanksgiving in your heart. Your voice is raised. Your voice is raised. Glory and honor and power unto him, Jesus.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Vision Plus. I never know exactly when to come in, but I guess that was a good time as any. I'm Bonnie Libhart. I know that name from somewhere. 33 years I've had that name, and it's still a disease I can't get rid of. Don't tell Tony I said that. I hope he's not watching television right this minute. We want you to have a little fun today, and we're going to be talking about how that's possible. Humor in business, humor in life in general. You know what the Bible says in Proverbs 15:13, and as you notice many times here on Channel 58, I get my tongue tangled up and I can't see. When I get my tongue over my eye teeth, can't see what I'm saying. Verse 13 says, "A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken." And down in 15, all the days of the afflicted are evil, but he that is of a merry heart hath a continual feast. Well, they probably have a continual face too. I don't know if I'm just thinking about you and being funny is doing something to me. I always think of Patty Allen when I think of somebody funny, or my daughter Deanna, but since I've met you, I think of you too.
Oh, well, good.
And this person is Carolyn Losures.
Good. Right.
Am I doing good?
Good.
Oh,
Good.
Yes, I didn't stumble over that name.
A lot of people do.
Libhart, that I've lived with all these years, I didn't know how to say it. I'm called Liphead, Liverheart, lots of good names like that. But welcome to Vision Plus.
Thank you.
You are the coordinator of volunteers and education for hospice.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about hospice, first of all.
Okay. Hospice is a program that takes care of terminally ill people and their family, and I like that concept because it's everyone who's under the roof, not just the patient. These are people who are declared terminally ill, and we go into their home as a team and take care of them during their last stages. And what we like to say is we help people live until they die rather than help people die. And I like that philosophy.
Yes, I've heard of the saying where he died at age 20, buried at age 60, when all those years just, you know, in a rut grave
Right.
with the ends kicked out. And so you help to bring joy and laughter and brightness into their life and other people's lives too, because you talk about humor in business when you're, like you spoke to Boeing.
Right.
And also you speak to other groups.
Right. In
And-
fact, I'm doing one Tuesday night at a Lutheran church, so that should be fun too.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, How, Carolyn, did you, with the job you have, get started speaking about humor?
Well, I started observing people who were working with the people who were terminally ill, and I discovered that a lot of people who did not burn out in this work had a very strong sense of humor. And I guess what we're saying is I have a poster in my office, and it's Raggedy Ann and Andy, and it says, "Don't take yourself too seriously." And I think we take our work that we're doing real seriously, but we really don't take ourselves too seriously. So I've started to discover that people who stayed in this work for a long time had a good sense of humor, for one thing. And then different people would say to me, well, whenever I'm around you, I find myself laughing. And I thought, over the years, I thought, well, that'd be a wonderful thing if I could help people laugh. So besides just doing that, I guess, in my everyday life, then I started doing humor workshops, and those have been sort of snowballing more and more. And it seems sort of funny that you actually pay people to come and make you laugh, which is something you would think most people would just do automatically, but they don't.
Well, what about Bob Hope and a whole lot of other people? Lots of people pay megabucks to come and make them laugh. Because like this Bible says, that it is good. You do have a continual feast when you have this joy, this laughter, and this in your heart, this feeling that, like you said, take your work seriously, but yourself not so seriously.
Right.
Why don't people laugh more, Carolyn?
Well, as I've looked back over it, and my background really is a school teacher, and I've discovered that a lot of people have what I call a lot of injunctions or scripts that they get from their parents and even teachers and authority figures, and people say things like, wipe that silly grin off your face, or stop laughing, or grow up. One we get in the business world all the time, and then we dress in these suits, you know, so that we don't act too silly. Be professional, and when you hear be professional, that sort of cuts out the humor and that kind of thing. And then we believe that that's true. And then we also say that, well, you can play after you're done working. And in today's society, everyone's working so much that they don't get much time to play. So what I'm trying to encourage people to do is develop humor, ears, and eyes in their total life from the time they get up to the time they get to bed, so they see humor in whatever they're doing, even if it's serious. Like working with
let's just take you through a typical, or a person through a typical day. Tell me some of the things that you could start of the morning. Let's get up in the morning and go to work driving all those miles.
Okay. I like Jim Pell. He does with laughter workshops too, and he says that like when the alarm goes off, you know, most people start the day off. That's the first sound they hear, and they think of it as a negative and may even, you know, say some words they shouldn't say and that kind of thing. And he says look at it as an opportunity alert. So I like that because that's sort of what can happen today kind of thing. And from my own faith perspective too, my father had his leg amputated, and he said don't ever get out of the bed without saying, you know, this is the day which the Lord hath made, let us rejoice and be glad in it. The fact that you can actually get up out of bed and walk to the bathroom or wherever you're going, you know, is a gift, you know, and to do that in joy. So that sort of sets your
mood for
your framework before your feet even hit the floor.
True. The first 10 minutes are so important.
Right.
If we can give thanks and blessings to God, and then just think, no, we don't know what that day brings and what will develop as a result of those paths we cross and lives we touch that day. Well, let's go on to work, all right?
We haven't gotten to work yet.
No.
Okay. I think, too, like a lot of people read the paper in the morning, and I think you can find humor in the paper. Usually, and here again, it's developing humor eyes and humor ears, and that's what I encourage people to do, to see and hear funny things around you. There are always faux pas in the paper. I guess maybe I shouldn't say that, but you know, there really are.
About this TV program.
And I like the one where it said, "Woman shot by an assassin, bullet is in her yet." You know, and then and to see that in humor, you know, even though it's written as a very serious article, and there are things like that all the time. If you're looking for them, other people can look at the paper and say, oh, you know, gloom and doom, that's all they ever print, and that kind of thing.
What are some of the ways that you can have eyes and ears for humor in addition to looking for that in the paper? What are some things you do?
Well, I think children, too. I think to surround yourself as much as you can with children, and I think we're so busy sometimes that we don't really hear what children say, and they're really very amusing, all the different, when I taught school, you know, I wish I had journaled some of the things that they had said. I remember some, a lot of them you couldn't even say on TV, but
I know
you know,
exactly
they're
what
just
you mean.
very refreshing. And then, you know, when they did writing papers, I remember one that I don't know if it came from my teaching, I don't think it did, but somewhere where I had read, someone was writing on Socrates, and they said that he gave a lot of advice and they poisoned him, you know, that kind of thing.
Advice was
you know, tying
worth
those,
exactly what they paid for. It was free, and then
tying those together, you know, and
I know when, and David, my little grandson, you know, listening, I said, David, you have your shoes on the wrong feet. When he was learning how, he said, these are the only feet I have.
yeah.
So if you just listen to the, you know, the way they put it,
and I
hear those things.
When we were in California, we had stopped at a nursery school, and they were letting their children off, and one little boy was behind the fence, and this other little boy was running in, and he said to this other little boy, he said, send your mother on to work and let's get on with our play. And I thought, you know, what happens to the little boy, the little girl in us that played and giggled and laughed, and we grew up and said, you know, we can't play and giggle and laugh anymore. And I think that's sort of sad, really.
Yeah, it is.
But,
we've developed what we call giggle time with David. Where we do actually, you know, just start laughing.
Yeah.
And anytime we can find something funny, he's now 7 and 3-year-old, that we do those, like those little things that you push, you know, and they'll giggle for whatever it takes.
Oh, it's so contagious.
It is.
It is.
That's a wonderful thing about it. Now, okay, we're up, but we didn't get to work yet, so let's go on. What are some things, the humor that could happen during arsenic hour, that hour of, you know, of the morning on the way to work?
Yeah, well,
before you start to work.
In my own car, I have a glove compartment, which most people, of course, have, and I keep a jar of bubbles, and I have a sunroof. And so a lot of times when, you know, you can tell people are getting really, and if you have to drive Whitesburg or the Parkway, fortunately I can go on 565, but, you know, there's still people, some people just get mad at anybody in traffic. I mean, it's just a thing that upsets them. So if you get stopped at a red light, you can just roll your sunroof and, you know, do your bubbles out the window. Well, you know what it does for everybody around you. You know, I have people, they'll wave to me. One man even put up his business card. I mean, you know, I thought, he probably said, well, she must be fun to know, you know, that kind of thing. And people will wave and just a real smile. And it not only is good for the person who does it, but it influences all the people around you. So, yeah,
great.
So that's just sort of a fun thing. And, you know, I do silly things like I used to do as a kid and play games and see how many letters of the alphabet I can find, that kind of thing. So I don't ever get ulcers over Huntsville traffic. So it's
and now you get to work, and let's do some things at work. What would you do at work to add a little humor?
First of all, I think one really good thing is to have a central place, and it sounds sort of in a dichotomy, but you really have to work to make humor happen with adults. You know, children, it just comes real naturally when they're little, but...
What do you mean central place?
Like I'd have a bulletin board.
Okay. I'm with you.
Where people would know they could go and find jokes. The only disadvantage of that, I guess, is I feel it has to be really appropriate. You know, I don't think you should do anything that would belittle or tear down anybody else.
Anybody or any race or culture or
anything like that. But there's so many good, clean, wholesome jokes that are really funny. Like I just put one up on ours. I'm in charge of the bulletin board, I guess, because I'm the teacher and the humorist, I guess they see me. And when anything funny happens at work, of course, I'm always blamed. But I put one up, and of course there are a lot of nurses in hospice work, and it shows this man in a hospital bed, and it's like an accordion, you know, and this little, well, like this mic is hanging out, and his bell, and the nurse comes in and she says, "You rang?" You know, and he's just squashed up in this thing like an accordion in the bed. And, you know, the nurses, not everyone would think that's so humorous, but any nurse that has worked in the hospital, you know, got a big kick out of that. So put things like that up.
Well, where's some other places that you can put them? I'm thinking of a lot of places.
Well, yes, there are lots of
Mine's
places.
going crazy
Yes,
now.
the Post-it notes are wonderful. I mean, you could put them if everyone's just putting them on the desk with boring messages, they're missing a lot of opportunities, you know. And even if you do put a boring message or a necessary message, you can put a little smiley face at the bottom. I have dinosaur stickers I stick on mine, you know. I've been known to put them on the toilet seats, but, you know.
What about the post-it in there? Don't you have a special post-it that you put in the restroom?
Well, yeah, I've said, like, have a happy day, or what are you up to now?
Yeah.
Something like that, you know. And it's fun, you know, and people, and especially in our work, I mean, it's so stressful that anytime you can laugh a little bit, it cuts down on that intensity. That,
so you can stay working with them.
Right.
Oh, you've got to tell me the story about the lady. That
yeah,
was
that's a wonderful story.
Yes. Yeah. I won't tell any more. You go ahead and tell it. I do these humor workshops too, but this is your story.
Yeah,
so
okay. A lot of people that think of hospice and everything think of the seriousness and say, well, they couldn't do that kind of work because it's, you know, depressing and that kind of thing. But when I first started this work, I thought, you know, it would be really difficult, that people be really scared of dying and that kind of thing, and it would be real morbid. But I've discovered that people die as they live, so that people that had a wonderful sense of humor in life have a wonderful sense of humor in their death. And this story happened with one of our hospice volunteers, and she called me on the phone and had to share it immediately when she got home. But anyhow, she was at this woman's house, and she was over by her bedside, and she was holding her hand and talking to her, and she said, and I have to change the name, but I'll just use Smith. She said, oh, Miss Smith, she said, you know, you really are pretty. And the patient said back to her, oh, she said, you know, you really are pretty too. And then she looked at her and she said, you know, since I've been coming to your house, I've really grown to love you. And she said, oh, I love you too. And she says, you know, she said, you are a pretty woman. And the hospice patient looked at her and said, too bad you're not pretty too.
The first one was precious.
Yeah.
So she could, oh, that's delightful,
so,
isn't it? So
you
she
know,
just had her
her
sense of humor, even though she didn't know how long she was going to, and it was from a fun standpoint, not a critical standpoint.
Yes, you know, she just picked right up on the humor and went right with it. And then, you know, another one that I love is some of the family were sitting out by a kitchen table, and the patient had been very, very critical. I mean, she was in the last stages, and all of a sudden she came out into the kitchen, and the family was, you know, sort of, you know, what are you doing here? And they said,
this is the one that was dying.
Yes. And they said, you know, what are you doing here? And she said, well, you know, you can't die on an empty stomach. So, you know.
Did you hear things like this when my dad was little, or when I was little, he'd tell me things like, oh, that people used to go to people's house when they were expected to not live through the night, and that this one person said there were all the people around, they couldn't get their rest, and they were expected not to live through the night. Anyway, the one that was expected to die said, well, if you're staying up with me, I'm better. He wanted everybody to go home.
Yeah.
And then I heard another one said something like, something about, oh, I can't remember that one. It'll come to me in a minute. But, you know, it's that sense of humor again.
Amazing. Yeah, and it's I guess I tell audiences, too, you know, that if they really want to die with a pleasant way, that they better start developing their sense of humor now, because they will die as they live.
Oh, I remember what it was. Said they were staying up with him, and said the husband said to the wife, well, honey, I think we need to go to bed so these people can go home.
Yeah,
anything that you can say to bring a little cheerfulness and laughter and joy into the family. But those are so old. First time I heard those kick 3 rungs out of my cradle. So, you know, even the old jokes brought back are good, too. If it brings
and I think another interesting thing about humor is we spend thousands and thousands of dollars to be fit. You know, that's such a craze now in, well, exercise and dieting and, you know, the diet centers.
Millions.
And,
Billions.
Billions, yes. And yet humor and laughter is You know, you don't have to pay a thing for it, and it's physically good for you. I mean, it's been proven that it actually is good for you health-wise.
What is that book that you told me about, that the study that was made? Oh,
yeah, that's Anatomy of an Illness,
yes,
by Norman Cousins, and he was seriously ill, and he was in the hospital, and he made the comment, a hospital's no place to be when you're sick, and he checked himself out and took out Candid Camera tapes and Three Stooges tapes and that kind of thing. He did, I think, a strong vitamin program, but he actually did cure himself through laughter and found that if he had what he called belly laughs, you know, where you really go deep down in, and he could go longer periods of time without pain medication.
Well, doesn't it actually create endorphins in your brain that take the pain away, in addition to prayer and faith? But those are things that you can do literally. Get those Three Stooges tapes and laugh and there's quite a number of old hilarious videotapes that you can check out and use.
And the thing with humor too, it's very individual. I mean, what I may laugh at, you may not. And I think and it's sort of like our gifts, you know, to find out what does amuse you and then do it, you know. Whether it's tapes or books or jokes, and I've told people too that find a person who's funny and hang around them, because it is contagious, and see what they do, and you know, that'll influence you too. So
and
that's really
important.
important.
Isn't it true that a lot of times a person who develops humor or has it apparently natural in them, isn't that many times from some tragedy and trauma in their life that they've had to deal with it with humor? Isn't that a way that some people
I think some, yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily everybody, but that certainly is a coping skill.
It really would be, and that would be a coping skill for all of us to learn. So how could we journal our humorous things from the paper and children? Would you actually keep you a journal and write them down?
Well, it would depend, I guess, on your own memory. You know, if you could just lodge them in your head, you wouldn't have to go through the discipline of writing them down. But
how do you do it?
Most of us, I keep a lot. I don't write them down. I'm not a paper person. They tease me. You know, I don't like paperwork, so I don't write them. I try and keep them up in my head. I lose a lot of them probably, but they're always fresh ones every day. When you have your humor eyes and ears open, there are things every single day. I mean, people in their speech say things that are just really funny. I mean, one lady said something about, she was talking about delivery and children and everything, and she said, oh yeah, she had the post-mortem blues, you know, instead of postpartum, you know. You know, and you hear people make those faux pas that are funny, you know, and I'm not saying you laugh at the person, but you lodge it. You don't laugh when the person says it, but you lodge it back in your mind, and you can tell it somewhere else. You know, and that's a wonderful one at a nurses' conference or something, because they can really identify with that. And we do that all the time with our speech, make funny.
So how about your own family? How do you glean things from them? You're married.
Yes. And I have two sons. Neither one live at home at this point, but when we have holidays or things like that, they well, I tease. I said probably on my tombstone they'll say, I wonder what she's up to next. I like to do things that amuse them, and we never just open gifts and that's it. You know, they're wrapping string on cords and going to neighbors and finding it there, you know, or they're reading poems and trying to figure it out, or you know, they open one thing crazy and don't know what it is, and they have to figure out how it goes to something else. So even Easter time, you know, for my children who are well beyond teenage years, you know, we still hide the basket, and they still have to go look for it, you know, and it's like, oh, Mom, and then she remembered, you know.
They love it.
And so that's sort of fun, and just to laugh at life in general is
well, Carolyn,
it's really funny.
We're so happy to have you here today, and if you would like to have Carolyn to speak with your group, just call me here at 461-8148. We'll be happy to get you in touch with her. Isn't she a delightful person that would work with hospice and the families there that are involved in hospice, and that she would bring that cheerful face to them. I'm so glad that you really fulfilled a merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance. I'm Bonnie Libhart, and along with Carolyn Losures, bless your heart for watching.
thanksgiving in your heart. Your voices raised, your voices raised. Give glory and honor and power unto him, Jesus, the name above all names. Come into his presence with thanksgiving in your heart and give him praise, and give him praise. Come into his presence with thanksgiving in your heart. Your voice is raised, your voice is raised. Glory and honor and power.
Hello and welcome. I'm Bonnie Libhart. Does your husband love you just the way you are? Would you love you just the way you are? Well, today on Vision Plus, we're going to get an idea of how we may learn some tips on having a wonderful, exciting marriage. I've been working on it for 33 years, and maybe someday I'll make it there. I guess it's like going to heaven. You just keep working at it, but I don't know if you ever achieve it while you're still alive. We are going to be doing a 6-week seminar for some young couples at the Winchester Road Baptist Church here in Huntsville, TVN area, Tennessee Valley area, here at Victory Network. Well, actually, it'll be there at the church. And I think they still have some openings. If you're watching this before that period of time is over, it starts June the 7th, lasts for the next 6 weeks. And we're using as a partial textbook this book, Born Again Marriage, that has quite a few what I call analysis action section. What it is, it's a part of, after the chapter is a section that is in yellow writing. If you have color, I'm sure you can see the yellow. And it asks questions that you talk with your husband and your wife about, or if you're engaged to someone, or if you're thinking about getting a divorce or getting back together, then you can use this same information. And so today I wanted to cover 3 primary points that we will be covering. There are really about a dozen of them in this book, but I wanted to cover 3 of them today and explore some of the things that maybe you could look at in your own marriage. And some of those that we want to look at is the very best way you can have a terrific marriage is your dedication to the Lord Jesus Christ. To be sold out to the Lord, and about all the other things will fall into place. And I wrote some of these down that maybe you'd like to jot them down if you would. First of all, you must hear the Word of God. And you can hear that by reading the Bible. Read Acts 10:33, where it talks about hearing the Lord. And then you must believe that what you've heard. Now, you can listen to Victory Network, Vision Plus, Rain in the Valley, all the shows that are on here, and you can hear them. But if you don't believe what you're hearing, then that doesn't do you any good. So hearing also includes believing. And believing, John 8:24. And then after you do that, then you repent of your sins. The sins are the things that you do that are wrong. And we know that there are a lot of things that we do, even after we're Christians, that are wrong. But we continually repent. It's really a daily, hourly, minute-by-minute truck we have to take. And then confess our sins to other people. Matthew 10:32, confess me before men and I'll confess you before my Heavenly Father. And then be baptized, Romans 6:4. There's a lot of verses that talk about being baptized, where there's the example of the eunuch when Philip met him, and he talked to him about the Lord, and he said, "Here is water. What doth hinder us from me from being baptized?" And so they both went down into the water, and he was immersed in baptism. And that's just, well, it's like death to the old ways, where we are not going to act like we used to act. And then Christ adds us to His church. We don't have to join a church. Christ adds us to His body. His body is the ecclesiasti, or the called out. That's the people that God has called, and they've answered that call and made that decision. And that's Acts 2:47, where it talks about that. And then, even though a faith without works is dead, and you don't have to, we cannot work your way into heaven, at the same time, it's just like a marriage. If you're married, then you do things because you love that other person, not because they said, okay, when we signed our marriage vows, it said that you would get up, cook the breakfast, get me coffee in the morning, make the beds, wash the dishes, and you'd go to work, and you'd earn your money, and you'd bring it all home, let me spend it any way I want to. No, you don't have rules and regulations about how you run your marriage, but you do those kinds of works for your mate, for yourself, for your marriage, and it does talk about that in Colossians 1:10. And we don't work in order to get ourselves into heaven, but because we love God, then we're going to love, we're joint heirs with Christ, we're going to love His people. And therefore, we will work. We'll do things for other people. We will, just like all the people from the Victory Network helped us so much when we went through a lot of our trials. You just want to do that. You've seen Vicki many times have people on that their house had burned, or for whatever reason they had a need, and she has this whole place over here where if people need clothing, well, she has them for them, no charge to them. Well, she doesn't do it because she's wanting to work her way into heaven. It's because she loves God, and she does that. Now, prayer. We do pray. Pray because, hey, it's like talking to someone we love. If you were married and your husband, your mate, never said anything to you, that wouldn't feel happy, would it? You want to carry on that conversation. And our Heavenly Father wants us to talk to Him. And through His Son Jesus, who died on the cross for us, we can go to Him and talk to Him about anything. I know a lot of times I just get together and I say, hey, God, you and I need to get together and have a little talk about this. I'm not feeling so happy about some of the things that are happening. And so therefore we have this talk. And I talk to Him just like my dad, my earthly father. When I wanted to say, hey, Dad, I need to borrow the car, I'd like to have some money. Well, it was always one and one and one. But I also went to my dad when I wanted to talk to him about a problem. He helped me with my algebra. He claims that he only went to the 3rd grade in school, but yet he could help me with my algebra. He also knew Greek and Hebrew that he learned himself. So my dad was one of those. Now, my dad's not living anymore, but even if your dad's living, you can still talk to your Heavenly Father. And so we pray to Him. We tell Him needs, we praise Him, we thank Him, and then we must contribute. We must contribute not only the tithe to carry on the work of the church, because a workman is worthy of his hire, the preacher, the song leaders, all the people that are involved must be paid for their work. People that run ministries like the Victory Network, we want to contribute to those, and we're commanded to do that. 1 Corinthians 16:1 and 2. And we're commanded to sing. It talks in Colossians 3:16 about making melody in our heart. And we want to sing praises. No, we don't have to have a voice like some of those you hear on Victory Network. We can't all be Karen Wheaton, but we can all sing with a lot of umph and graciousness. And don't worry, I'm not going to sing to you today. But we are commanded to sing. Now, for some extra credit homework for those, we could study some of this. Sin is a reality, and there is not a single man on all the earth who is always good and never sins. Ecclesiastes 7:20. The consequences of sin, it is for a man's our own sins that he will die. Ezekiel 18:4. Our helplessness. They trust in their wealth and boast about how rich they are, yet not one of them, though rich as kings, can ransom his own brother from the penalty of sin, for God's forgiveness does not come that way. Psalms 49:6 and 7. And so we cannot do that, but who can? Christ. Christ paid the price. In this act, we see what real love is. It's not our love for God, but His love for us. Isn't that terrific? His love for us, when He sent His Son to satisfy God's anger against our sins, 1 John 4:10. And there's only salvation in Him. Jesus told him, I am the way, yes, and the truth and the life. No one can get to the Father except by means of me, John 14:6. It's up to me. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. 2 Corinthians 7:14. And so there's a lot of things that if we have that as a basis, it's just like when you build a house, if you put it on a solid foundation, then you will have a solid way to go. But even with that solid foundation in a marriage, it is a lot of challenges. So first of all, what do we look for in our mate? Well, we look for him to perfect us. I had a toss salad lifestyle, and Tony was Marine Corps trained, German by birth. He was an engineer by his training also. Very exacting, quiet, likes to think things over, thinks things through. Not me. Boy, if I thought of it, I'm on the impulse. I want to do it right then, and I'm ready to move. And he had a lot of complaints about me. One of his complaints was that I didn't keep the house as neat as his mother did. His mother had help. I had Deanna when we married, and then got quickly 2 other children, so 3 children, and worked, and he complained about the house. But now, he also complained that I cooked the same old things. Well, I grew up on a cotton farm there, and we just didn't have a lot of variety. I tell you, it's beans and taters and Sunday fried chicken. That's about it, and open a can of peaches. So I was kind of in a rut, and his mother was a James Beard trained gourmet cook and had all the money in the world that she needed. But I learned to be more creative, and as we got a little bit more money, then I cooked a little differently. But now he does probably as much of the cooking as I do because he enjoys it. So it's okay. But he had some good things to say about me. He thought I was slender and positive and intelligent. I don't know if he was accurate about that part, but we wrote down a few of these things in the book about each other. And there were a lot of things that I didn't do right, and I thought he should talk more. He said he would talk more, but he hates to interrupt. So sometimes we just find faults with our mate, that Tony takes forever to make a decision. My goodness, I can have things done 10 times over by the time he's made a decision. And that causes for a lot of challenges in a marriage. Now, when you're evaluating either your marriage or your mate that you are considering marrying, you're engaged to, or unfortunately some of them are already living together before they get married, and I hope that wouldn't be you, but if you're thinking of getting married, then there are some things that you can do to help yourself out. And one of those is to have a budget. And I have a budget in this book, and I'd be happy to send it to you. There's one of these is about your marriage, and one's about your children, and one is about the money that you have or you don't have, and how you can actually make a budget, and also your possessions. I know that budget. Okay, in order to do a budget, you may want to evaluate the cash that you have on hand, and maybe the checking accounts and savings account and any other money that's owed you by someone. Maybe if you have a business, it could be some money that hadn't been sent to you that people owe you money. That's part of your assets also. You want to put together your assets and your liabilities. And of course, if you have any life insurance or bonds or real estate or automobiles or furniture, jewelry or anything you own, that's your assets. Now the liabilities that you have. The liabilities are what you owe for your house, what you owe for your charge accounts. We hope you don't do that. We had plastic surgery and cut up all of our charge cards. Of course, we were kind of forced to do that, but I'm glad that we did. And the most amazing thing is, since the day I cut them up, I haven't even needed them. Well, maybe I've seen something occasionally and think, hey, I'd love to have my MasterCard Visa back again. But, hey, we do keep one Gold Card American Express just so that if we ever need something like rent a car, you can do that. Of course, what do you spend for utilities, food and clothing? Those things you have to figure out. And then if you'll make that decision to give each other so much money a week, it could be $5, it could be $55, but whatever it is that you and your family decide that you can do, and then you don't have to answer what you spent that money for. That money is yours. That money is yours to do whatever you want to. If you want to go to the garage sale, or if you want to pay down on something and plan to pay it off by next November, it doesn't make any difference. That is money you do not have to account to anyone else about. Then you take your assets, subtract your liabilities, and that gives you your net worth. And if you're going to buy a house or save the money for a down payment on a house, this will give you an idea of when you want to go to a bank to borrow money for a house or something like that. Well, we can help you with that. Now, you might analyze the time it takes to earn the money. And after you've analyzed it and you want to go out and purchase something or go rent a boat for 4th of July weekend, whatever it is, Memorial Day, whatever you want it for, then you decide, hey, if that's going to cost me a couple $100, is it worth it to me? Would it be just as much fun to go to take a picnic and go to the park? And then after you've made those decisions, you may decide to change some things. Pay off your credit cards. I would recommend that you pay off those credit cards. So however you feel about what you're going to do with that money, you have to analyze the time it takes to earn the money and whether it's important enough to you to actually cut up the credit cards and have that stress off of you. So you can do it. You can do it if you decide that's what you want to do. And then set a date for when you want to change. When do you want to change? When do you want to start? You might decide that, hey, right after July the 4th and that beautiful weekend, I'm starting to save our money. That's after the vacation. Set you a time. Maybe you want to wait even until September the 1st. Whenever it is. Of course, it'd be great if you could start watching your money during the summertime so you don't run those credit cards up or you don't just get so overwhelmed with the amount of debt that you owe. And you'll feel so good about yourself that it'll be worth it. So in addition to analyzing your mate's strong points and weak points, and then sitting down together and making that assets and liability column so you can put your budget together and all the things to do to straighten out your finances, then you might decide that you want to actually go forward in, this is heavy, I call it, finding out what is really terrific about your husband and tell him about it, or your wife. Actually write a letter that tells them some of their good points and some of their things that they've done over the years that you think are really terrific, that they've done for you. Now, I had that turn to, okay, why do some of us get so interested in a new person who is totally opposite from many of the previous ideals that we had in the person? That's when people start looking for a new playmate. Well, that's because we think that would be perfect to start over again with a new playmate. But instead of that, why not present your mate's good points. And then you might also just make everything that you can think about. If they work, then that's a good thing that's about that person. And if they clean the house, if it's a wife, or if you work as a team cleaning the house, whatever it is, if you work together as a team and try to remember what you saw in each other when you started, whether it's a year ago or 30 years ago. What is it about that person that you liked in the very beginning? Go back and recapture that feeling. Because if you have your sex life straightened out, your finances straightened out, and you make a decision that you want to have a terrific marriage, it's going to be better with the one that you're already married to than a new person, because many times you got all those children and in-laws and outlaws and my kids and your kids are fighting our kids. It just gets so entangled that you've got more problems than you thought you had. So it's better to have a terrific marriage is just make your decision to, number one, sell out to God. Let that be your basis. Have a terrific sex life. Have a wonderful budget that you live within. If you don't have the money, this is the way you do a budget. If you don't have the money, you don't do it. You don't buy it. It's that simple. And then you keep the phone calls cut down and all those things you have to do. And if you'd like to know more, you can come to our 6-week course that we're having at the Winchester Road Baptist Church, and just call them up. You can look it up in phone book or call the operator, and they'll be happy to include you. It's primarily for young couples, but any couples at all that like to have a sweetheart marriage, we're going to have that opportunity. And I'm so glad you joined us. If you'd like to know more, for any donation to Victory Network, you may own this book, Born Again Marriage, that has not just 3 points, but about a dozen points. And so happy you joined us today. I'm Bonnie Libhart. Bless your heart for watching.
Thanksgiving in your heart and give him praise. And give him praise. Come into his presence with thanksgiving in your heart.